Welcome to Healing the Spirit, a space where we awaken our creativity, deepen our connections, and remember who we are through the lens of astrology, archetypes, and art making. I'm your host, Jonathan Coe. Hello everyone, welcome to Healing the Spirit, and welcome to this episode. So in this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you some of my contemplations for the week of August 21st, 2023. And as always, I invite you to tune inwards to feel into your own intuitive knowing as you are listening to some of my thoughts, some of my impressions about the energy and the astrology of the coming week. Feel into what feels relevant for you, what feels resonant, what catches your attention, and to trust that whatever is coming up for you is exactly what you're supposed to be working with in your path, in your life, and in this moment for you. So let's begin with a little bit of a rundown of the astrology. On Tuesday the 22nd, Venus, which is currently retrograde in Leo, will square Jupiter in Taurus. Mars in Virgo will oppose Neptune in Pisces. On Wednesday, the 23rd, the Sun will leave the sign of Leo, which is its home sign where it's been for the past month, and it will enter Virgo. And then the ruler of Virgo, Mercury, will station retrograde, also in Virgo. On Thursday, the 24th, Mars in Virgo will trine Pluto in Capricorn. And on Sunday, the 27th, the Sun in Virgo will oppose Saturn in Pisces, and Mars will enter Libra. So we're entering the second phase of the Venus retrograde, right? Those of you who listened to the Venus retrograde episode that I shared a couple weeks ago may remember that I mentioned I would break down this particular Venus retrograde in Leo into two different phases, right? So when a planet is in Leo, right, that planet is answering to the ruler of Leo, which is the Sun, right? And so throughout this Venus retrograde, the first half of the Venus retrograde, the Sun will be in Leo, right, which is its home sign. The sign is very comfortable in Leo. The Sun is able to express all of its essential nature in Leo. And then the Sun will move into Virgo, right? A sign that's ruled by Mercury. And at the same time, Mercury will be retrograde. And that second phase begins this week. And so I think it's an interesting week. It may feel like we're entering into a moment where we are beginning to look at some of our own unconscious processes that may be holding us back. And I am not really sure if a lot of the process that are happening this week are necessarily conscious, right? A lot of the things that are coming up this week may be more on a felt sense. It may be more your animal body. It may be more somatic. It may be more lunar. It may be more unconscious. And so I suppose the first thing that I will encourage you to do is to dilate your attention, right? Your awareness of this lunar realm within yourself, your unconscious or subconscious realm, right? Your felt intuitive sense, your emotions, because these are the languages that may be speaking up more loudly this week. And there's also a sense for me, especially with both Mercury and Venus now going retrograde, and then Mars is in Virgo for almost the whole week, right? Until Sunday, where it enters Libra. And Mars in Virgo, I think, has been a really nice energy. There's kind of an efficiency to Mars in Virgo. Mars in Virgo knows how to really get down to business and to prioritize what's right and what's not right? What is in alignment with our agenda and maybe what isn't really that important to take care of. There's a way in which Mars in Virgo has a gift of focusing, right? Of compartmentalizing to be able to get things done. And this Mars in Virgo is in an opposition to Neptune, right? And so there's a little bit of a crunchiness to the energy of this week. And I think this is probably a week where it's more supported for us to be releasing things, like actively noticing and actively letting go of the things, maybe the relationships, the projects, the entanglements, the contracts that haven't really worked for us for a while, rather than trying to move forward, right? So in a sense, this week is a lot about preparing ourselves, right? Looking at honestly taking an assessment of where we're at and figuring out, where am I on a subconscious or unconscious level holding myself back from making that forward momentum, right? And then having a conversation with ourselves, right? With that part of us that feel a little bit scared, of moving forward, right? Often when we think about making changes, what can be hard about making changes is that, yes, the situation you are currently in may not be super great for you, but the reality is you also don't know, right? Once you release the thing, is the new thing going to feel better? Right? Like there's a way in which that uncertainty can feel a lot scarier than staying with what you already know, So it's about inviting in a conversation with a part of us that feel an apprehension, that feel some level of fear of moving forward, right? What parts of us are afraid of losing what we've been building, right? There's a reason why you got here in the first place. The reason why you got here is because at some point, some part of you decided it's a good idea to continue building or to continue following the breadcrumbs to get to this point, right? And that part will not like it when we decide to change the way that we are, change the orientation of our lives, right? What parts of us are afraid of grieving the fact that we have to change, and therefore some parts of us have to die, right? It's a moment where I think we are invited to really double down on having a lot of compassion for ourselves, for having a lot of gentleness, and for really recommitting to being on our own side, right? It's funny how for a lot of us, it's really much, much easier to have compassion and to have gentleness for the people that we love, the things that we love, maybe even our pets, right? Rather than ourselves. I saw this quote the other day that really struck me, which is something along the lines of, I can't remember where I saw this, but essentially something along the lines of, if I ask you to name the things that you love, how long will it take until you get to yourself? And I think this week is really going to challenge us to look at that, and as we engage in this process of active releasing, guilt may come up, right? Shame might come up. A feeling of regret might come up. Self-flagellation might come up. And so I think this is really a week to be with all of that, right? This is a week where I think if we have a lot of set expectations around moving forward or making progress on something that we've been working on, it may be a little bit challenging, I was feeling, looking at how, the sun moved from Leo to Virgo, right? And then the ruler of Virgo, Mercury, going retrograde this week. I was like, the energy feels a little bit like not very forward, right? And then I was like, let me confirm with the tarot. So I pulled a couple tarot cards. The first card to indicate what we need to know, for those of us, myself included, who are gathered and listening to this contemplation. What do we need to know about this coming week? And then the second card is what can anchor us, as we move through the week. And the first card I received, which is explaining what we need to know, is the Seven of Pentacles from the tarot. And to me, the Seven of Pentacles has this energy of delay, right? The Seven of Pentacles has this energy of not just yet. We planted the seeds. We made sure the soil is correct, right? We watered it. And yet the plants need some time, to grow, right? The environment or the climate has to be correct, in order for that plant to start, pushing off the ground, right? Or to start even bearing fruits. And so that may be the energy a little bit this week. And I think for the first half of the week, where Mars is still in Virgo, or rather until Sunday, where Mars is still in Virgo, I think there's more of an energy of forward momentum, is still somewhat possible. And I think as Mars enter Libra, there's a little bit of a slowing down, and I think what can really help as we notice that slowing down, if that slowing down is happening in our lives, is to remember that Libra ultimately, right, is a sign ruled by Venus, and Libra is connected to art, right? So even though Mars may be moving a little bit more deliberately, or there may be more confusion, there may need to be more negotiation happening, right? With Mars being in Libra, ultimately it is a Mars that is oriented towards artfulness, right? That is oriented towards refinement. And so if we remember that the end goal here is refinement, right? If we remember the end goal here is to be in right relationship, which is another thing that Libra can indicate, then I think we can feel a little bit less frustrated, right? When we have to be in the waiting period, It's kind of making me think about, if any of you have ever commissioned a painting, or commissioned an artwork. Sometimes the artist is human, and so the artist sometimes moves through something in their own lives, right? That may hinder the progress of that artwork being finished in the scheduled time. And so I think it helps a lot when we are working with delays and when we're working with a change in pace, from Mars being in Virgo, which is really oriented towards efficiency, right? To then moving into Libra, where Mars maybe is more aware of the different perspectives that are in the room, where Mars is wanting to engage more in conversations, it's a slightly awkward place for Mars, right? Mars, in its uninhibited nature, in its essence, likes to be spontaneous, likes to do things without any restrictions, right? And so Mars in Libra can feel a little bit sticky, can feel a little bit slow, can feel a little bit too deliberate for its own comfort. And yet I think we can cultivate a little bit of ease around this when we remember that the point or the agenda of Mars in Libra is ultimately to take action towards something that's actually beautiful, right? It's, after all, a Mars that answers to Venus, right? It's a Mars that serves Venus. It's a Mars that is more concerned about pleasure and about beauty rather than moving ahead. And so if you are in a position where maybe you have a project and you really need this project to move ahead, right? You might find that this week, whether you like it or not, you might be confronted with something within your system, right? Or something that you did in the past that needs some tending to, that you really need to kind of look at, you need to take action towards, that maybe you need to repair even in order to more easily move forward when the time comes, right? Mercury going retrograde in Virgo is very interesting because in Virgo, Mercury is what we call in traditional astrology in domicile, which means it's in its home sign and it's exalted, right? Which means that Mercury has a little bit of extra juice, extra power. Mercury can shine a little bit brighter to get its agenda fulfilled. And yet, Mercury is also retrograde. And so the way that I'm conceptualizing this, the way that I'm understanding this is that Mercury going retrograde in Virgo is still a pretty active Mercury, right? It's still a Mercury that is oriented towards efficiency. It's a Mercury that is really resourced in many ways, but its resourcefulness is perhaps more suited to things that have to do with looking back, right? With looking at the past, with making sure that all of the clauses are airtight, right? This is not really a Mercury that is about moving forward or moving the plot forward. This is more a Mercury that's that will do a really good job at like a retrospection, right? It's a Mercury that will really do well when it's asked to look back, and to figure out, to retrace its steps and to figure out, did I miss anything? Is there anything here that really is calling for my attention, right? That I haven't necessarily spent a lot of time on, This is an interesting week to be asking ourselves about our relationship with standing still, right? With not moving forward, or even maybe with like the necessity of looking back. One thing that is really coming through for me with regards to this week is the theme of completing cycles. In some ways, completion can be really difficult. Anybody who's ever created a significant piece of art or a piece of writing, even like an essay, right, that needs a lot of research, knows this to be true. It's really hard to complete something because there's a part of us that is resistant to actually letting go of the thing, right? When we say have been writing a book, right? Our minds, our whole being have been orienting towards this book and towards the subject, right? We've spent a lot of energy trying to figure out a framework, a conceptual framework that makes sense around this inquiry, right? And as we are finishing the book, or we're finishing writing the book, we are confronted, or we're faced with the realization and the reality that soon our lives will need to change because this book will be done, this artwork will be done, this project will be done, and we won't have to worry about it anymore, And regardless of how our experience working on it has been, it can be really scary, to move forward. It can be really scary to step into the void, right, of not knowing what's going to come next. And so it's a really great week to be feeling into our relationship with not moving forward, right? Maybe there's a little bit of discomfort that comes through, maybe some part of you is afraid of staying with the messiness of letting go. The energy this week feels to me a little bit like a dark moon energy. So this is interesting, right? Because when you look at it, technically, we are in the waxing phase of the moon. Last week, we have a new moon in Leo, right? And so technically now we're accumulating towards a full moon, right? Which is going to be in Pisces, happening, I believe, if not next week. Yeah, I think it's next week, right? And yet, with Mercury going retrograde at the same time that Venus is going retrograde, and the two of them are connected, right, by rulership, as well as with Mars entering Libra, right, its detriment sign, a sign where it's in detriment. This is a ripe time for decaying, right, for shedding. There is a way in which all the energy that we could be putting into starting something may need to be redirected to what needs to go. You know, this is one of those times where the best way, perhaps the most aligned way for us to move forward is to actually really clean up, right, and make space so that whatever is supposed to come next can have a place, you know, can have space to breathe and to express itself and to take up space. It's a perfect time to also let your body take the lead. I think a lot of this process is going to be similar to the digestion process in the human body, right? When we're thinking about digestion, we don't need to think about digestion. You know, our bodies kind of do their own thing, right? Like, right after you eat a meal, it's not about like sitting there and thinking like, how am I going to digest this food, right? Your body just kind of does this automatic thing. And so some of the releasing may be really happening on a very automatic level for you, right? And some of it may need a little bit of prodding, but I am getting a sense that the prodding is not going to be mental. Again, Mercury retrograde in Virgo is Mercury in an earth sign, right? And so Mercury in an earth sign is embodied. This is Mercury that is considering, you know, the way that your gut is also a brain, right? It's thinking from the gut, you know, or it's thinking from the heart, or it's thinking through the hands, right? It's not really thinking through the brain, you know, or the mind, right? The conceptual, cognitive mind. You may be in some ways working with what are you ready to eject from your system, right? What are you ready to cut out? What patterns are you ready to let go of? You know, what emotional surgeries have you been putting off? You know, what is rotting in your spiritual system and needs to be rotting in order for it to decompose into something else, right? What hasn't brought you joy for some time? You know, there's a very Marie Kondo vibe here. You know, it's about saying thank you to those patterns, saying thank you to these relationships and maybe even these projects, and to begin to make your separations, you know? And I think where I want to bring the body here is because something that we don't always think about a lot is how letting go takes a lot of energy, right? A lot of energy. And so you might find that the process of letting go for you looks like a lot of napping. You know, the process of letting go may look like, you know, listening more to music rather than podcasts, right? There's a way in which listening to music allows us to access a part of our brain that's more reptilian or maybe more ancient, right? That's less linear and logical. This is a time to be doing some movement practices, you know, to just put on some music and start dancing, right, in your room, rather than trying to plan your days ahead, right, which may be a little bit challenging, probably, with this energy. You know, obviously everybody will have a different experience with regards to how this energy lands on their own lived experience. But my sense is that there's kind of a lethargy, you know, in the collective energy, right? And so probably the best suggestion I can give for you to engage with this week is to let yourself enjoy the rest of August, right? Really let yourself live your life. You know, and what I mean by that is call up a friend that you haven't talked to in a while, Spend time with a friend that whose presence you really cherish. If you are in a financial position to be able to do so, maybe go out for dinner, or get body work, get a massage, right? Get acupuncture, or go to your chiropractor, right? Tend to yourself. Allow yourself to just lie on the floor on a yoga mat, with your knees bent, right? Your feet flat on the floor. And let yourself really ground in that way. If any of you are really into meditating, I think meditating can also be great for this week. My sense is that engaging with more embodied ways of meditating, right, or accessing some of the same states that you access when you meditate may be more easeful. So maybe things like Qigong, or Tai Chi, or maybe yoga, right, that relies on also moving your body in some sense in order to come to a sense of mental stillness, or even just like pushing the wall, like really allowing your energy to like go into the wall, right? Like exercises like these, I think, can be really, really massively helpful, and the other thing I want to mention is that not all letting go will happen consciously. Often, the best way to let go is just to relax, right? And in giving yourself a chance to relax, you will find the parts of you that do not want to relax, and in sitting with the part of you that don't want to relax, paradoxically, your system naturally starts relaxing, right? And in so doing, you'll start to just notice, oh, this thing is not resonating with me anymore. What happens if I just let myself float, right? And release my attachment to having to do the thing in order to be the kind of person that I think I need to be, right? And in that relaxation, you may naturally just kind of let things go. If any of you are interested in rituals, I think this may be a really good time, not necessarily to engage in rituals for asking for things, but it may be a really good ritual. What may be a really good ritual for you to do is like a ritual of gratitude, for example, like being really grateful for and really feeling that gratitude of the things that you've been moving through, this past week. It's been really intense, I'm not gonna lie, right, with this Venus retrograde for a lot of us. And so how can you honor that? How can you honor the experience of things having been really intense, what can you express your gratitude towards? And to let yourself really sit with that, right? And I think there's something in gratitude that also helps us shed, because gratitude allows us to energetically align ourselves with that which we want to experience more of, right? Whatever it is that you're grateful for, implicitly you want more of it, right? You want to experience more of that in your life. And so I think when we energetically, on a being level, align with that, we tend to naturally start releasing the things that are not bringing us closer to those states, right? Yeah. I think the last thing I will say is that if this week feels challenging for you, and if you're listening to this, on Monday, you may not even have any experience yet to even feel into whether this feels challenging for you or not. But if this week feels tough for you, then let it be, right? Don't give yourself the grace of not making stories about it. not making stories about how your difficult situations or the difficult feelings that you're moving through is a reflection of who you are as a person. What if you give yourself ease by letting go of the expectations that your inherent goodness will necessarily have to translate to ease in your experience, right? What if you just let yourself have an experience of certain transits or certain moments in your life being quite hard, and maybe if it feels accessible to you, reaching out for support, from a friend that will be able to hold space for you, or will be able to hold you right through this moment. Maybe going out to nature, allowing yourself to co-regulate with the trees, right? Or with the land, or giving yourself a chance to lie down in your backyard, or a nearby park and just look up at the skies, talk to the stars, right? Let yourself be held by the greater web of life in a week like this week. And my sense is that you will find that that's perhaps a much more beautiful, easeful, maybe dare I say efficient way to move through energies like this coming week, rather than pushing forward, right? Like willfully exerting your force to move things forward. Let things be a little bit unformed. Let things not have shapes for a little bit and just see what happens. It's okay to sit in the darkness. It's okay to sit in the void. All right, that's it by way of contemplation for this week. I am so grateful for your time and your attention, and my hope is that something here in this contemplation serves you, and I wish you a lot of gentleness and ease and embodied presence as you move through whatever it is that you're moving through this coming week. Until we meet again, I am sending you so much love, and I hope you take good care of yourselves. Thank you.